Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Jason with Jadren Aquatics. Thanks for hanging out with me again today. Hope you guys are having an absolutely amazing day. So, back out in Austin again. This time we headed out to another fish room. Now this fish room is owned by Gary. This was an amazing fish room. Now one of the things that was really cool about Gary's fish room is he actually had it in his garage, much like I have mine. His garage seemed to be quite a bit bigger. It also had higher ceilings, so I think his ceilings in his garage are about a foot taller than mine. In fact, he had one aquarium that was up so high that I kept trying to figure out how in the world does it seem to be so high that I couldn't even reach up and put food in, because I know some of my tanks that I have at the highest they can possibly be, I can still get food into them. It's difficult, but I can still do it. With this one tank, there's no possible way you can get it without a step stool. And so that's when I realized his ceilings were much, much higher than mine. But one of the cool things that he did with his fish room is he wanted to make his where it was a cool and fun place to really hang out. Whereas when I'm building my fish room, I'm trying to jam as many tanks into a small space as I possibly can. He took the time to put a big sectional couch in there. He's got a big TV in there, so he can go out there and just kick back, really enjoy his fish. So it's just a cool place to be in from all the time that he took just to make it the way that he wanted it to be. But he still has plenty of room to be able to add as many more tanks as he wants. So let's go ahead and let's head out there so you guys can see this cool fish room that was well worth the drive.
This tank here is my 55-gallon. Really, this tank was set up for my axolotl, and I ended up putting a bunch of my just guppy and lure hybrids and mutt fish, so to speak, in here. Lets her have source of live food, plus it just, in my opinion, keeps the tank balanced. But this tank is probably one of the only tanks I have that's not really natural looking, because I set this up particularly to have caves and things for her to hide in. This tank was really set up just for her. And yeah, as we were talking about, this is I mean, it's summertime in Texas. This tank runs 85 degrees or so in the summer. It'll drop down in temperature as we get into winter, but I don't have any issues with my axolotl being unhealthy or anything like that, even with the hot water.
How long have you had her?
Coming up on a year. Actually, January will be a year I've had her. She was 3 years old when I got her. She came from another club member that it was her son's, and the son was moving to college and couldn't take her with him and needed to find a home for her, and I fell in love with her right away. She's actually unbelievably cool to watch and feed.
She looks healthy as can be.
Yeah, no, she's not shy. She enjoys when she sees people come up to the tank. She likes to come and make a show. As you can see, she's not shy at all. See, this tank here, this is my female of a mated pair I had, although the male died about a month ago. Still have no idea why. He just, no sign of anything wrong with him. He just didn't make it. I was trying to get a little breeding action going on in here, but now I need to find her another mate. Yeah, angelfish were always a passion. I'll probably always have at least one angelfish in my room, because that's when I got into the hobby. These were what started it for me, and I bred them for probably 3 or 4 years straight. So it is odd only having one of them in my fish room now. So, see, going over here is a 40 breeder. And I probably should have put some brine shrimp in here to get the cories to come out, but there's a school of about 30 bronze cories. They hide pretty good. They'll school really well though once you feed them. There's also probably about a dozen Amano shrimp in there. They hide pretty well in there. And in my black neons, those are actually some of my favorite tetras of all of them. And half of those black neons are probably going on 5 or 6 years old. So I didn't even think tetras lived that long when I first got them. As you look at my tanks, you'll see I keep areas of my tank that have deep substrate in all my tanks. I believe that's a huge part of keeping the water clean. I don't like bare bottom tanks. I don't like, and even on this, I kind of keep the sand low just for them, but where I keep my planted areas, I like to build those areas up quite a bit. All my stone, everything is locally stuff I pick out of the ground from areas around the area here in Marble Falls.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. A lot of my sand and gravel, well, some of it's pool sand, but some of it I will go and collect from the dried up lake bottoms and whatnot. Yeah, these here were just some girl guppies, female guppies. I was kind of letting them breed out a little bit, and then I threw one nice male in the back there. He's a blue lace, but he's got a little red in him because he's not true. So we'll see what actually comes out of there. But most likely I'll actually probably move those depending on what fish I get in the auction tomorrow. These here are my albino red Russian red lace line tigers with the tiger skin. I love these. I'm trying to really get these producing themselves more. I do more colony breeding. I don't really do the whole pair trio. I just enjoy the colony breeding just because for me the hobby is sitting back and just relaxing and watching these fish. You'll see cherry, not very many in this tank, but you'll see cherry shrimp in pretty much most of my tanks. Next one is some white cloud minnows. You'll see the smaller ones were born in this tank, so I've had some success breeding them. If you look closely in the bottom, these are actually some of my higher grade cherries in this tank. They're going to be everywhere. And you know, I do have algae in my tanks, but that's because I breed fish, and I think actually algae is a super important aspect to have when you're breeding fish. These are my yellow guppies. I don't really have anything in particular with these guys. This was just a tank. I threw a pair of those in there and they bred really well. This is a good example where you can have a lot of guppies and a lot of shrimp in a small tank, and I don't have any issues with the guppies eating the shrimp at all. This tank actually is a little bit of the more dirtier in my tanks because that's my only tank. It has 0 filters on this tank. This tank just does its thing. This is a 40 breeder that there's a few guppies in the top here, but that's not what this tank is primarily for. Actually, if you pan over to the right, you'll see I have a bunch of Bumblebee Gobies in here. I have about 5 matched up pairs. They hide pretty well. Again, I have shrimp in here. I do tend to like to keep a little guppies and shrimp with my gobies. I find that the gobies will hunt the guppy fry as well as the baby shrimp as well. So I hardly ever feed these, and if you look at the females, they're as fat as can be because they have a constant supply of live foods. I do keep, it's harder to see, but I do have a bunch of seed shrimp and even scuds in a lot of my tanks.
If you guys are enjoying this video and you would love to see more fish room tours, more fish store tours, and a bunch of cool DIY projects in my amazing fish room, be sure and hit that subscribe button right now.
These are a little guppy line that I'm trying to work on right now. Getting some half blacks. I've mixed some yellows in there and gotten one really interesting male. He's in the top up here. He's got some beautiful blues and golds, and he's got that metallic sheen to him, and so I'm gonna probably pull him in one of the females and see if I can just reproduce that. But I got him by mixing a gold with that half black, or yellow guppy with that half black, and I absolutely love him. Yeah, she is every single guppy in that tank, as well as my albino line, everything all came from her. She is the mother of all of them. She's actually probably the mother of a third of the guppies in this entire room. And I keep pulling males as they develop out of there, and yet she's still spitting out fry. And then I have my salt and pepper cories in there as well. Again, kind of another good example where I have a low, flat, sandy area for the cories, but then I build up a nice elevated area. This is a shrimp only tank. As I don't know if you noticed, but over this is actually lava rock is built up probably 8 inches behind that wood. And that's tons of scuds in there, and I probably should feed them to get them come out. But as you can imagine, the shrimp just hide up in those rocks like crazy. So when I do drop a few tabs in there, it's unbelievable how many come rushing out. My Christmas moss, it died back, but it's just starting. You can see it on the wood there. It's starting to come back on the edges of the wood, and that wood used to be completely covered in Christmas moss. And these are my yellow snakeskin line, as well as my black rose neo shrimp line. Although I need to do some culling on here because a couple of them are coming out more blue than I want. I need to get the bluer ones out of there. But that actually started from a Dream Blue line that I got. That was the person I got it from got it by starting it with a Carbon Really line, and that was some of the original Dream Blues, like 8 or 9 years ago, which were coming from Carbon Reallys with blue velvets. And then I had a colony crash, and only like 3 or 4 shrimp lived. And I threw them in a tank, and next thing I knew, the 4 that lived really expressed a lot of blacks, and then now they've bounded back. Those were actually a couple culls out of this black rose line, and then again, I started that tank 3 months ago. Threw a couple of the ones I didn't like coming out of here in there, and I guess I threw 1 pregnant female in there. And if you get really close on the matin filter and everything, there are so many shrimp in there. There might be more shrimp in there than in here, and they've only been in there like 3 months, and I just threw a couple of culls in there, and they've gone crazy. This 75-gallon used to have a bunch of rainbow fish in it. As they've died off, I haven't been replacing them because I'm going to, as they go, I'm going to replace them with there is about a dozen Apistoramas. Actually, you can see one on top of the driftwood here. There's a young baby there.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they're in there. I know they hide really, really well, and they're still young. At the base of the plants down there, you can kind of see them like really in there in that back. They hide under that Anubias a lot too. There's a little cave underneath that driftwood. So that's my last male of I had about 18 Parkinsoni rainbows. Again, these were rainbow fish that I got close to when I first got in the hobby. He's about 9 years old. You can see the tumors in his tail. I mean, it's just a sign of his age. You know, the rest of his group slowly died off, like one every 3 or 4 months, and you know, it just happened over the last 2 years. And he seems to be swimming fine, and like I said, I'll let him stay in there, as well as that Pracox rainbow as well. It's the last of a group that I had. And then up here at the top, these were gifted to me actually by a club member that went up to Seattle and picked these up directly from Master Breeder Dean. And I've got 2 mated pair. They've both spawned for me. These tanks have a little need to grow in. They're a little more black water because I do keep bags of super peat back behind the matin filter to help, you know, buffer the water a little bit. And but those tanks are only about a month old, maybe 4 or 5 weeks old, so they still have some maturing to do to start looking better. But both of these pairs have already spawned for me. Right. That had a lot of shrimp in it. You'd have to look closely at the gravel. That tank has got thousands upon thousands of scuds. And what I like about the scuds is that's my one tank in this fish room that I have not even had to clean the glass on or do any kind of maintenance on that tank other than an occasional water change since I set that tank up 6 months ago. Those scuds do not let algae of any form, shape, or matter, and it's the exact same light on that tank as the tank next to it. So you can't say it's the light's not strong enough to grow algae, because I get algae in the other tank, but get a little pea puffer in this tank, as well as I put a lot of shrimp culls in here. So you'll see if you look closely, they're more the wild type, or that I pull out of my other groups. I put them in there just, again, The pea puffer leaves the adults alone. You'll never see any baby shrimp in there though. But he doesn't mess with the adults at all. This pond here is filled with plecos, and this is actually probably one of my favorite things in my fish room. As far as being relaxing, watching this, and this is just a 115 gallon watering trough I got at Tractor Supply for $60. I made my own filter. I'm using a cat litter thing. It's got holes drilled, and it goes through several layers of Metalamat, and then the bottom is a pump filled with lava rock. And you know, I once every couple months pull the top layer of the mat out of the top of it, so it's got the lids like here, and that's why I liked using it, because I can just open the lid up, pull out the sponge off the top, rinse it out, slide it back in, close the lid back up, and you know, it does a great job of cleaning the water. I mean, well, I think it's that and the plants, and I mean, in essence, that's like a bog filter that I built above the pond. Just using some pond liner and filled it with pea gravel rocks, and just, yeah. So this here is, I just set this up about a month ago. There's no fish in it yet. In that basket, so I've got airline hoses, similar to a matin filter. I've got 2 PVC pipes that run each way, and then I let it just run the water, and I drilled little holes in the PVC pipe so that the water would slowly seep into the, and then again I use Metalamat as my kind of layer, and then I covered that in it's peat moss and pea gravel. The pea gravel's there just to make sure the peat moss, when it gets wet, doesn't just wash. Right. It doesn't wash out. This is tank's only been set up about a week. I'm planning on doing some more Cardinia shrimp in here. I've got a lot of Neos, but I've got some tangerine tigers in my bedroom. But other than that, I've never really done the Cardinia shrimp, and so I'm doing that. So I actually went and got some Fluval stratum, and because all my other substrate is like I said, this is what I get from the bottom of the lake, you know. Yeah. And I like it. I mix some pea gravel in, but I like it because it's a little coarser than pool sand, so it actually makes great for plants. These are my Mica Splendens. I got a small group of them from a club member that moved to Florida and just couldn't take all his fish with him. And he was never able to get them to breed. And I real quickly learned the key to getting them to breed, and it was feeding them handfuls of algae. So I'll pull hair algae from other tanks and literally have a handful. Actually, this little piece of wood here, this was in that pea puffer tank and was covered, I mean green. You couldn't even see the wood underneath it. Threw it in here just about a week ago, and now there's not a speck of algae on it.
Well, there you go, guys. I hope you loved this fish room. I'm excited. I can't wait to actually go back out there again, because of where he lives at. I think he said there's like 3 lakes that actually converge on the area. So he says all the rocks that he has and all the driftwood and stuff that he has and all the gravel, he actually goes out there and finds whenever the water level goes down. And he said sometime I can come out there also and go out there and actually go out and catch some of the fish that are native to the area. So just a cool place. So be sure, guys, if you have a comment, leave it down below. So thanks again, guys, and God bless.